Good day with your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw. First with the highlights. A search team has spotted fishing gear from the sunken trawler, but there has so far been no sign of the missing fishermen. A man wanted for the shooting death of his son-in-law has been arrested at an international airport attempting to leave Guyana. And in the region, Suriname has lifted its COVID measures. And you'll also get your latest international news coming from the BBC.
Advertise with us on News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM for best coverage on programs on motivation, beauty and health, parenting and relationships, knowing your rights, and a variety of enlightening content, and get value for your money. Call our helpful staff today on 223-1056 or 223-1041 today.
Now for the news in detail. As families await word about the disappearance of 3 fishermen after a sea bob trawler sank off the coast of Maikoni early Saturday morning, officials on Monday said emergency response was hampered by the late delivery of information to authorities. Director General of the Maritime Administration, Captain Stephen Thomas, said nearby vessels did not receive distress radio messages on the emergency communication channel from the ill-fated trawler World Friend 307.
If we had gotten, for instance, a report, then we would just inform vessels that there's a vessel with a potential problem, and they would have started closing in on the area. But as I said, we had nothing of that nature in this instance.
The MARAD Director General says he received information about the trawler at about 6:45 Saturday evening, although officials were informed that Noble House Seafoods received information about 5:30 Saturday morning. Those missing are the vessel's captain, 45-year-old Harold Anthony Damon, 78-year-old Ronald Burton, and 46-year-old Winston Sam. Winston Dazzle was rescued in a life raft by fishermen and reported the mishap to police and the company. A search, rescue and recovery team has spotted the net of the trawler that capsized in the Atlantic Sea early Sunday morning. None of the 3 fishermen who went missing has been seen so far. Public Works Minister Deodat Indar says the search team has seen the net floating in the general area where the trawler sank. He says Guyana Defense Force Coast Guard divers were not able to dive on Monday and will return to the area today in the hope of reaching the trawler named World Friend 307 and owned by Noble House Seafoods. Lloyd's Register, LR, and Matpal Marine Institute Incorporated, a maritime and oil and gas education, training, and support center, have signed a memorandum of understanding to jointly support safe maritime training in Guyana. As part of the memorandum of understanding, Matpal will promote and host LR training courses in its training center. Training courses will include ship emergency response service, risk management, and incident investigation, and a practical approach to ship surveys, amongst others. The Memorandum of Understanding will focus on local content development in Guyana and support oil and gas companies to navigate requirements in the region. This follows recent plans by the Guyana government to equip 4,000 young people with the necessary technical and vocational skills to help employment. Guyana's COVID death toll now is 1,213, but there is a sharp decline in the number of new cases and overall active cases. The Health Ministry says 2 more persons who were not vaccinated have died from the viral disease. At the same time, official figures show a steady reduction in the number of new cases, Within the past 24 hours, 12 new cases have been recorded. Guyana now has 840 active cases, with 68 of them hospitalized and 772 told to isolate themselves at home to avoid spreading the disease. The Health Ministry also says that of those hospitalized, 11 of them are very sick and are receiving intensive care. The man who allegedly shot dead his son-in-law has been captured while attempting to leave Guyana. Guyana Police Force Crime Chief Senior Superintendent Wendell Bladham said the suspect was held Monday at the Eugene F. Correa Ogle International Airport shortly before he was due to board a plane to Trinidad and then to the United States. He is accused of the shooting death of 25-year-old Leon Gittins of 118 Cowan Street, Kingston. The incident occurred in East La Penitence when Gittins went to visit his girlfriend. The perpetrator was dressed in wig and dress when he opened fire on Gittins in the presence of his daughter at midnight February 18, 2022 at Lot 211 Freeman Street, East La Penitence. A Venezuelan man has been stabbed to death and the alleged perpetrator has since been arrested. The dead man has been identified as 29-year-old Yoctor Eduardo Gonzalez. The incident occurred at Rahu Sports Bar on the Suzaik Junction shortly before 10 o'clock Saturday night. Investigators were informed that the victim was with his brother and several friends at the bar when the assailant approached the victim. During the altercation, the suspect stabbed Gonzalez to his right side chest, which caused the victim to fall to the ground. Gonzalez was rushed to the Diamond Diagnostic Center where he was pronounced dead, 12:35 Sunday morning. Quick action by the police led to the suspect being apprehended and placed in custody as investigations continue. Police are hunting 3 men who robbed a jewelry stall at Mondrepo Market, East Coast, Demerara. The 46-year-old jeweler told police that the men broke a showcase and started removing jewelry. Investigators say the lone employee raised an alarm and one of the bandits whipped out a handgun and fired a shot. He was not injured. The employee says he ran for cover and the perpetrators then escaped out of the market. A 25-year-old man who changed his account as a witness in a murder trial is to be charged with perjury. Police say the man told police that during January 2021, he had been taken to the father of the accused who had threatened him with consequences if he had not changed his story. According to the Guyana Police Force, on February 16, 2022, he went to the court and stated that he knew nothing about the matter. He is to be charged with willful and corrupt perjury. In the magistrate's court during the preliminary inquiry, he had initially testified about what he had seen on April 30, 2017, when John Hudson was allegedly murdered. At the questioning on a Monday, he was cautioned in accordance with the judge's rules and he elected to tell his story. Now accused of perjury, he recalled giving a written statement to police on what he had witnessed on the night of the killing. A few weeks later, he had attended and positively identified the suspect at an identification parade and subsequently testified on the 30th of October 2017 at the Georgetown Magistrates Court No. 2 before Magistrate Miss Daly. Now for the news in the region. A medical practitioner says she remains confident after a High Court judge last weekend ordered the immediate reinstatement of her registration and practicing certificate. She had been suspended after she had been found to be prescribing and supplying the drug ivermectin to patients affected by the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Last December, the outspoken medical practitioner was suspended for 6 months by the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Council. This was after indicating that she had been prescribing and supplying ivermectin to patients without authorization from the Ministry of Health or the Chief Medical Officer and publicly encouraging its use to treat the virus. The Caribbean Media Corporation reports that last Friday, the council representatives were not present at the High Court when the matter came up before Justice Rohan Phillip, who later ruled to reinstate Dr. St. Rose's registration and practicing certificate and stay the council's decisions until the determination of the case. The matter comes up for a hearing on April 28 this year. Ivermectin is an antiparasitic drug most commonly used to treat livestock. It is U.S. FDA approved for humans when treating lice and specific parasitic diseases, but not for COVID-19. The World Health Organization, WHO, says the current evidence on the use of ivermectin to treat COVID-19 patients is inconclusive. Suriname yesterday lifted curfew imposed as part of the measures aimed at curbing the spread of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Health Minister Amar Ramadan said maintaining the lockdown makes no sense now because the curfew does not make any additional contribution to the current wave. The authorities said that the ban on people gathering has been increased from 10 to 50, but that parties remain prohibited and that clubs, among other things, are still not allowed open. Justice and Police Minister Kenneth Amoxi and Police Commissioner Orlando Jacot said as a result of the new measures, the authorities will step up their control and enforcement. The Caribbean Media Corporation says that Amoxi appealed to society not to abuse the relaxation and to behave responsibly. Ramadan said he believes it remains important to maintain a balance in current COVID-19 care and to scale up regular care. COVID-19 has killed 1,310 and infected 77,716 others in the Dutch-speaking Caribbean nation since March 2020. The Caribbean Community CARICOM Secretariat is this week training Antigua and Barbuda immigration officials on the movement of CARICOM nationals and the facilitation of travel. The online training will be for 2 half days, 22 to 23 of February 2022, and will focus on the legal basis for the movement of skilled nationals, the CARICOM complaints procedure, and the role of immigration departments in facilitating the free movement of people. Other topics on the agenda cover administrative practices and procedures that govern the movement of service providers and an update on Antigua and Barbuda's status regarding implementation of the free movement of people within the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME. There will be approximately 25 participants in the training session, which is part of the CARICOM Secretariat's program of activities, engaging stakeholders across the region on the CSME. And lastly, in the region, an assessment will be done on the impact of rising cost of living in St. Martin. Dutch State Secretary of Kingdom Relations, Alexandra van Hoffelen, says authorities will examine the possibility of a 12.5% reduction in employment benefits of civil servants and semi-public sector entities. Those benefits had been instituted as one of the conditions for liquidity support that the country received to help buffer the effects of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Van Hovselen's remarks on the assessment and cuts was in response to a question on whether consideration was given to remove the 12.5% cuts. The state secretary said the issue of the cuts has been raised during her meetings in St. Martin as well as in past, and she realizes that it is not easy on workers. She said the assessment will be completed by the spring of this year. And that was your regional news rather. Here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
Hello, this is Danielle Yawowiecka with the BBC News. Ukraine says it could cut all diplomatic links with Russia, complaining that Moscow's recognition of 2 breakaway regions amounts to an act of aggression. President Volodymyr Zelensky told a news conference in Kiev that the security of the whole of Europe was being decided. For his part, Vladimir Putin has rejected suggestions that his ultimate aim is to restore Russia's empire. He told the visiting president of Azerbaijan he wanted to develop relations with former Soviet neighbours.
I want to say right away, we already predicted the speculation that Russia plans to restore its empire within imperial borders. This is absolutely not true. After the collapse of the USSR, Russia recognized all the new geopolitical realities, and as you know, is actively working to strengthen our interaction with all countries and independent states that have emerged in the post-Soviet space.
Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz has said he's suspending a key Baltic gas pipeline, Nord Stream 2, following Russia's recognition of the Ukrainian breakaway regions. Here's Jenny Hill.
Germany had hoped diplomacy would stop Vladimir Putin. Today, its Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, finally played his trump card. For weeks, to the consternation of some Western allies, the Chancellor had refused to publicly name Nord Stream 2 as a potential target of sanctions, preferring instead to say that all options remained on the table. But this morning, Mr. Scholz said the situation had radically changed and announced what amounted to the suspension of the project. The pipeline, which would double the amount of Russian gas coming into Europe via Germany, is all but ready to go. Mr. Scholz said he'd now stopped the certification process.
European Union countries are working on a package of other punitive measures against Russian interests that will apply across the bloc. The prospect of conflict in Ukraine and retaliatory sanctions against Russia has prompted a sharp rise in energy prices and volatility on stock markets. New York's main indexes opened lower, while in Moscow, the main stock market indicators are sharply down. The cost of Brent crude rose above $99 a barrel. While much of the world has lined up to condemn Russian policy in Ukraine, several of Moscow's allies have leapt to its defence. Cuba's communist government has accused the West of targeting Moscow with a propaganda war. Syria has said it supports Russia's decision to recognise the breakaway republics in eastern Ukraine. In other news, Hong Kong's leader, Carrie Lam, has ordered the compulsory testing of all the territory's residents for coronavirus. The authorities are trying to maintain a zero-COVID policy despite surging infections. Ms Lam said everyone had to undergo 3 rounds of tests with penalties for those who failed to comply. Mainland Chinese officials have been drafted in to help. World news from the BBC. A court in Japan has for the first time ruled that victims of a decades-long forced sterilisation programme for those with disabilities should be compensated by the state. The Osaka High Court sided with 3 plaintiffs. Will Leonardo reports.
From after the Second World War until the 1990s, more than 15,000 Japanese people were made to have an operation to prevent them from having children described as inferior. The programme targeted those with physical or mental disabilities, but in some cases having behavioural problems was enough. For years, redress in the courts hasn't succeeded, often because of how long ago the procedures happened. So the awarding of compensation by the Osaka High Court today sets an important precedent. In 2019, the Japanese government apologised for the programme and offered victims some money, but most haven't claimed.
It's now known that at least 16 civilians in Saudi Arabia were injured by shrapnel, several critically, after a drone was shot down over a village. Saudi-led coalition forces said the aircraft was launched by Houthi rebels in Yemen on Monday. Scientists in Britain say a fossil of an ancient flying reptile found on a Scottish island is the largest pterosaur ever discovered from the Jurassic period. The skull and body of the 170-million-year-old creature was found entombed in limestone rock on the Isle of Skye. Here's Victoria Gill.
These look a little bit like they might be teeth, and it's pretty symmetrical.
Edinburgh University PhD student Amelia Penny spotted the jaws of this Jurassic creature protruding from the limestone on the Isle of Skye back in 2017. The researchers cut out the slab that entombed it and transported it to their lab for study. Now they've confirmed that this is a new species of pterosaur, a flying reptile never seen before. And with a wingspan of 2.5 metres, it's the largest Jurassic pterosaur in the world. The team has named it Yark Skianark, Gaelic for winged reptile.
BBC News.
And that there was your international news from the BBC. Here now is a recap of the highlights. A search team has spotted fishing gear from the sunken trawler, but there has so far been no sign of the missing fishermen. A man wanted for the shooting death of his son-in-law has been arrested at an international airport attempting to leave Guyana. And in the region, Suriname has lifted its COVID-19 measures. And you had your latest international news coming from the BBC. And that there was your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.